Okay, let's get into the next topic tonight, and that was yesterday's AFL Presidents' meeting. Damo, when you're a reporter, you love these. There's always something going on. And, and there was yesterday, and St Kilda were coming off the long
Some old-fashioned fire and brimstone, Ed, from the Presidents, and it was Andrew Bassett of St Kilda who led the way. They're really unhappy now, and have been for some time, about the father-son and academy rules pertaining to how access is given to clubs who have access to those players. And I've spoken to Andrew tonight, and this is his on-the-record statement about it. You can see what he's saying. It is compromise in his eyes, that there is a nonsense price paid for access to the father-son and academy players. He feels that the advantage is the access, but the price that the clubs to this point have been required to pay just does not match the advantage given. He knows that the AFL is working on this at the moment. I believe Collingwood, Ed, was a club that bristled at the suggestion. I haven't been able to make contact with Jeff Brown today, but this was part of the Andrew Bassett argument that Nick Daicos, who ultimately went at pick 4 through the bidding system, Collingwood only needed picks 38, 40, 32 and 44 to gain access to him. Prior to that, and again, this was another name mentioned by Andrew Bassett, Josh Daicos and Darcy Moore. And as we flip the page there too, he's also highlighting what happened last year, as other clubs have done, with Gold Coast. Now, you can see what they were required to give up on those listed numbers under those names on the screen there. But, Jimmy, you work in the draft trade space by way of assessment. Those first 3 of those 4 names were all considered top 10, maybe top 12 players, and ultimately those lesser numbers were only required by the Gold Coast to be...
Yeah, but if you have a look at what Gold Coast gave up, they gave up a number of first-round picks and some high picks as well. And it seems to be the issue that I don't agree with in football, is that we can have something but just don't do it well. As soon as we do it well, let's throw our arms up in the air. You look at Josh Daicos. He went pick 57. Clubs, that's nearly 2.5 coming around to 3 laps of the draft where you could have bid on him. And you can go into others with the Swans with Errol Goulden. He went pick 32. So nearly twice around each club.
And the other one on that, I mean, Darcy Moore almost was a bust at one stage. Don't forget he had to get taken over to Germany to get his hamstrings fixed. And at one stage was... do you hang on to him? Which one, you might have to lose one. Will it be Darcy Moore was in discussion because I couldn't find a spot for him that he wasn't breaking down. Now, clearly he's become a superstar player.
I do feel he raised a good point there.
I also blanch a bit at that, given the fact that when I was president of the club, I was a bloke screaming louder than anyone about getting the fairness for academies, fairness for father-sons, and getting it right. So I think we need to get to that position. So I agree with Bassett on that situation, Andrew Bassett. But at the same time, I mean, I'll go back to Geelong. They had Blake, Ablett, Hawkins, Scarlett. They got lucky. Yeah. And that's what you're saying. Sometimes you get lucky.
Can we highlight the ones
plenty of first-round picks have been done.
Yeah, well, again, that's all part of the argument. But what he says to me does resonate in that the advantage is the access, Lordo. So if you need to get someone in, use pick 4. Don't use a combination of draft picks that give you the value of pick 4. And that will be part of the changes that are now inevitable. And I've got a doubt now.
Right up to the time until they get one that comes their way.
Well, that's the issue, isn't it? And that's why Carlton is so aggressively fighting
moving
back on
forward.
this.
Then say Nick Daicos, there's a future Nick Daicos. He's pick 1. And say St Kilda nominates him at pick 1. How do they find that pick 1?
Well, that's why the clubs want it also loosened up to be able to trade picks 2 and even 3 years in advance to always be capable of giving a pick 1 equivalent.
Let's be honest. It's run like it's a goodwill society. It's wonderful that father-son, we all love it. I mean, you reckon I'm not happy that the Daicos boys are at Collingwood and, Dane Swan, I want his son to come to Collingwood.
But pay the price, Ed, is the
Pay the price or get rid of it. If you're going to have a proper draft...
Well, we're not going to get rid of it, are we?
Well, I don't know why. It's an invention. I mean, does it really matter? Half these guys move on anyway. I agree with the father-son because of the romance of the whole thing. But if you're running a serious football competition, you have an uncompromised draft. That's how it works. Now, no one wants to do anything in football. Everyone wants to run around in circles until the actual hard decision needs to be made. And we're going to get to some of these things with what happened during the week with some of the comments made because no one actually wants to say what's really going on. And all the fluff and the smoke and mirrors around the outside of it comes into play every time because no one actually stands there and says, this is the situation. Right? Caroline Wilson thumps the table, father-son, it's great, it's a wonderful thing, and it is. Until you get to this situation. And Bassett, who realises he's got probably 2 or 3 years left to change the whole St Kilda culture, looks down the road and says, we've got no chance against the academies in the northern states and father-sons, and everyone's done the sums on that, and they're going, right, OK, We've got nothing. They've got 3 or 4 coming.
And that, to just underline the fire and brimstone element to yes, that was put back on Andrew Bassett too, that this is your issue and not the competition's. And so it did get really fiery at certain points, and it has been in the lead up to yesterday. And there's the Carlton Footy Club desperately clinging to the access they've currently got under the current rules to the Camporeale twins and access to those players under the current system, which they'll be able to get. And that's why they are adamant that it can't be changed this year.
The irony is that St Kilda is an establishment club. They were one of the first clubs in. They've had 135 years to get some father-sons in the lineage.
I think all their champions had daughters, Ed.
Well, then they'll be right for the AFLW.
Yeah, they should be.
So, there we go. But it's one of those things. There's only one answer: uncompromised draft, or try and get it as fair as possible. And it's nearly there now.
The one thing I do agree is, come draft night, it's amazing how many. There's not too many picks where we don't know of. It's sort of academy, father-son academy. So I feel like it's taken away from the joy of the draft of not knowing where a guy's going to go to.